3 weeks ago, a man I knew, 86 years old, stopped walking to his mailbox. Not because he couldn't, but because his daughter told him, "It's safer if I get it for you." He agreed, and that was the beginning of the end. 2 weeks later, he was sleeping longer, barely eating. Said he felt dizzy standing up. Said he felt foggy in the afternoons. His body hadn't failed him. His habits had. And I've seen this story repeat again and again in homes that look perfectly safe. Not from disease, not from trauma, but from 5 quiet mistakes. Subtle, daily choices that feel harmless, even helpful. But they slowly erase energy, memory, strength, and even the will to keep going. If you or someone you love is over 80, this could be the most important thing you hear today. Let's begin. The first mistake comes quietly. It doesn't look like danger. It looks like nothing. No loud symptoms. No accidents. Just a person who starts speaking less. Moving less. Not because they're weak, but because the world stopped noticing them. I met Lorraine when she was 85. Her memory was sharp. Her heart was strong. But her eyes, they didn't look at you the same way. She used to smile when someone walked into the room. Now, she just looked down. Not sad, not angry, just absent. Her son visited every Sunday. Groceries were delivered. She had everything she needed. Everything except connection. I asked her how she was doing. She shrugged and said, "I'm here. That's all. Not I'm good. Not I'm tired. Just, I'm here." Let me ask you something. Have you ever sat across from someone you love, a parent, a grandparent, and felt like they were slowly pulling away from the world? Not with words, but with silence. With the way they stop asking questions. With the way they stare past the TV. With the way they say it's fine when you ask how they are, and you know it isn't. That's not age. That's withdrawal. That's mistake number 1. Losing micro-connection with daily life. It starts small. They stop chatting with the neighbor. They no longer wave to the mailman. They skip one birthday call. They stop asking, "What are you cooking?" Not because they don't care, but because no one's asking back. The brain is social. Even at 80, especially at 80, when we remove ourselves from small daily interactions, the brain dims. When people stop speaking to us, we stop speaking to the world. It's not always obvious. The person still eats, still watches TV, still says thank you when you bring tea. But they are fading, not because of illness, but because they no longer feel involved. I once had a client, 87 years old, who stopped going outside after her dog passed away. Not because she didn't want to, but because the dog was the only reason she had for walking. Without it, she said, "I don't know what to do out there anymore." Do you hear the mistake? Not, I can't. But I don't see the point. Let's pause for a second. Ask yourself this. How many conversations did your parent have yesterday? Outside of you checking on them? How many unscripted human moments happened? Moments where they gave advice, or asked a neighbor a question, or were asked for their opinion. If the answer is close to 0, you're looking at a warning sign. That's where the fade begins. Not in a hospital, but in a chair near a window, where no one looks them in the eyes anymore unless it's for medicine or food. Here's the truth. Without being seen, heard, or asked for value, the body stops trying, and the soul, it goes silent. So what can you do? It doesn't take much. Let them decide dinner once a week. Ask their opinion on a news story. Invite them to tell a memory, not just remember, but tell. Give them a role, even if it's small. One man I worked with, 84 years old, was in charge of choosing the music during lunch. He took it seriously. That 5-minute job became the best part of his day. Why? Because it gave him presence, choice, voice. Micro-engagement creates micro-resistance to decline. It builds momentum, and momentum is life. Without it, we sink into routine. And routine, without interaction, becomes isolation. Let me leave you with this. People don't disappear when they die. They start disappearing the moment we stop including them. You can stop that today. By talking, by asking, by letting them be visible again. In the next part, I'll show you mistake number 2, and it's one most families make with love in their heart, but fear in their actions. It looks like protection, but it steals strength faster than age ever could. The second mistake doesn't come from neglect. It comes from love, from fear, from a sentence we've all said before. "I'll do it for you." It starts after a fall, or a scare, or a hospital visit, and we think we're helping by removing effort. We bring the groceries. We take away the broom. We say, "Don't worry, you rest, I've got it." And slowly, the person stops moving. Not because they can't, but because they're not allowed to try. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you let your father lift something for himself? Even if it was slow? When was the last time you invited your mother to walk without holding her arm the whole way? I know you mean well. So did I. So do most families. But I've seen what overhelping does. And it scares me more than most diseases. I worked with a man named Henry, 85, retired mechanic, independent most of his life. After a short hospital stay, his daughter moved into care for him. She did everything, made every meal, handled every step, never let him reach the sink without her support. At first, he was grateful. Then he got quiet. Then he got weaker. He told me, "I didn't get old this fast until I stopped using my legs." It hit me like a brick, because I realized he wasn't aging. He was being protected into weakness. Here's the hard truth. The body listens to what we allow. If no one expects you to walk, your legs stop preparing. If no one asks you to reach, your balance disappears. If you never carry anything, your grip fades. And once the strength is gone, it doesn't come back easily. You might think you're keeping someone safe, but safety without movement becomes a slow exit. One physical therapist I respect deeply told me, after 80, it takes just 2 weeks in a chair to lose a year of strength. 2 weeks. That's one cold, one extra cautious visit, one overly helpful family member. And just like that, the muscles shrink. The brain stops sending signals. The body gives up on progress. Let that settle in. We think we're avoiding accidents, but often we're creating long-term decline. So what can we do instead? You don't have to pull away your help. Just change how it looks. White heavy check mark, invite effort, not perfection. White heavy check mark, let them struggle with supervision. White heavy check mark, give them the broom, even if it takes longer. White heavy check mark, ask them to carry the napkins, if not the plate. White heavy check mark, walk beside them, not in front. I once worked with a woman named Lila. She was 90. Her son refused to let her do the dishes. So she just sat. I asked her what she missed. She said, "I used to like folding towels." So we gave her towels, not a basket, just 3 a day. She folded them slowly, carefully, with pride. And 2 weeks later, she was standing longer, smiling more, sleeping better. It's not magic. It's memory, muscle, momentum. Even the smallest tasks signal the brain. I'm still part of this world. Let me ask you again. Are you helping someone or replacing them? That's a hard question, but an important one. Because if you remove every challenge, you remove the need for strength. And when strength has no job, it disappears. Start small. Ask your mother to water one plant. Ask your father to pick the music at dinner. Let them choose the grocery list. They might be slow. They might be shaky. But every action they do for themselves is one more reason to stay engaged with life. Help should support effort, not erase it. Love should guide, not wrap and bubble wrap. So before you say, "I've got it," ask if maybe they still do too. In the next part, we'll talk about something even harder to see. It doesn't live in the muscles or the joints. It lives in the air, in the walls, in the slow dimming of rhythm. And it begins when the sun no longer feels like morning. Some changes after 80 are visible. Gray hair, slower steps, forgetful moments. But some changes are quiet. They happen inside, and they start with something as simple as light. That's the third silent mistake. Losing natural rhythm, losing sunlight, losing the pattern that tells the body when to rise, when to rest, when to engage. I once worked with a man named Charles. He was 83, sharp, witty, still liked puzzles. But over a few months, he started saying things like, "I'm tired all the time. I feel off, but I can't explain why. Some days feel like they don't exist." He wasn't sick. His vitals were fine, but his life had lost shape. When I visited his home, I saw it immediately. Curtains closed. TV always on. Overhead lights stayed on until 1 or 2 a.m. He'd wake at noon, nap in the afternoon, sleep again around dawn. He had no rhythm, and neither does the body when it no longer knows what time it is. You see, our brains are built on cycles. light and dark, warm and cool, action and rest. After 80, those cycles become even more important because the body no longer pushes through. It listens to what the environment says. And if there's no signal, it defaults to stillness, confusion, and over time decline. Let me ask you something. Is your parent or grandparent seeing the sun before 10 a.m.? Are they going to bed under soft light or a bright ceiling? Are mornings different from evenings in mood, in tone, in color? If not, they're not just tired. They're out of sync. We think it's just aging. But in many cases, it's light deprivation. It's rhythm collapse. And the consequences are real. Brain fog, digestive issues, weakened sleep cycles, increased depression, daytime confusion, even higher fall risk. One hospice nurse I know told me, sometimes giving a patient 2 weeks of proper light fixes more than any pill we give. And she's right. Back to Charles. We made 4 simple changes. We opened the curtains by 8:30 every morning. He stepped outside for 10 minutes before breakfast. No screens after 8 p.m. and a warm lamp instead of the bright ceiling light after dinner. 2 weeks later, he told me, I'm dreaming again, and my brain feels more awake. That's what light does. It doesn't just show you where you are. It tells your body how to be. You don't need expensive therapy lamps. You need sun, sky, and a pattern that repeats. Open the shades early. Step outside, even if it's just on the porch. Let the light hit the face, not just the room. Then, when evening comes, lower the tone. Switch off the overheads. Use lamps. Use silence. Let the brain feel the shift. Because when the brain feels morning, it prepares to move. And when it feels night, it prepares to rest. But if every hour looks the same, nothing turns on, nothing turns off, and slowly, the body stops responding at all. You might be watching this thinking, it's just lighting. How much can that really matter? But I'll ask you this. If your body never felt hunger, would you still eat? If your brain never felt daybreak, would you still wake up with purpose? That's what this is. It's not about brightness. It's about signal. One woman I worked with, Elaine, used to say, my days feel like one long hallway. She lived in a perfectly comfortable home, but everything looked the same. Same gray light, same TV glow, same quiet stillness. We started changing her environment, not her body, just the cues around her. And within a month, she said, I feel like I have mornings again. That line stuck with me. So here's what I'll leave you with today. Don't wait until confusion sets in, until someone you love says, I don't know what time it is. Or, every day feels the same. Start with the windows, then the lamps, then the rhythm. Because restoring rhythm isn't just about comfort, it's about survival. In the next part, we'll talk about something deeper, something most people never say out loud, the emotional weight that stays hidden after 80, and what it does to the body when no one gives it a voice. Some weights don't live in the body. They live in silence, in the pauses between questions, in the parts of a story we never tell. That's the 4th mistake, unspoken grief, especially after 80. I met so many older adults who've lost people they loved, a spouse, a sibling, a lifelong friend. And I've noticed something. They almost never talk about it. At least, not the real part. They say, she's in a better place. He wouldn't want me to be sad. We had a good run. Then they change the subject, smile politely, move on, but their eyes say something else. I remember Frank, 88, lost his wife of 53 years. When I asked how he was doing, he said, I keep busy. That was it. But when I sat with him quietly, he finally whispered, I don't think I ever said goodbye. And that silence, it was crushing him. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen someone who's still functioning, still eating, still watching TV, still answering calls, but they feel hollow? Not sad, not dramatic, just dim. That's often grief with no voice. And when grief isn't spoken, it doesn't go away. It sinks into the chest, into the gut, into the muscles. It shows up as fatigue, as lost appetite, as sleep that never feels deep. One therapist told me, unspoken grief often looks like depression, but it's really just sorrow with no outlet. And it's common, especially for older adults. Why? Because no one gives them space to say the hard things. No one asks, what do you miss most about her? Or, what do you wish you could say to him right now? We talk around the loss, never into it. And the result? A quiet shutdown. I once met a woman named Clara, 90 years old. She had outlived her husband, her sister, and both best friends. When I asked how she was coping, she said, "I just try not to make it harder for anyone." That broke my heart, because grief that is hidden for the sake of others doesn't disappear. It turns inward. She started sleeping more, eating less, stopped answering the phone, not because she wanted to die, but because part of her already had. So we tried something simple, a notebook. Every morning, 10 minutes of writing, no rules. After a week, she handed it to me and said, "These are all the things I never got to say out loud." And then she smiled. That week, she joined a group activity for the first time in a year. Not because the sadness was gone, but because it had somewhere to go. Grief doesn't need to be erased. It just needs to move, to have air, to have witness. So if you're listening to this right now, and someone in your life has lost someone, ask. Ask gently. Ask kindly. But ask. And if you're the one carrying the loss, don't wait for permission. Speak. Write. Pray. Cry. Visit old places. Say the name. Because when grief is allowed to move, life begins to move again too. Even a little. And sometimes, that's all it takes. I once heard this from a hospice chaplain. Most people don't die of grief, but they stop living because of it. Let that sink in. Your sadness is not a burden. It's a bridge. It connects who you were to who you still are. And the moment you let it speak, you start to come back. In the next part, we'll talk about the final mistake. The one that hides behind good days and stable health. The one that creeps in quietly when someone stops feeling needed. And it may be the most dangerous one of all. Some people die long after their body is ready. Others start fading long before it ever gives out. And often, the difference is one thing. Purpose. That's the fifth silent mistake. The slow loss of daily purpose. Not a big dream. Not a legacy. Just one small reason to get up. I met Irene when she was 89. She had her meds. Her family checked in. Her fridge was full. She had everything she needed, except one thing. A reason to wake up. She told me, "Every day feels like the one before. I'm just here, waiting for what I don't know." That sentence stayed with me, because it wasn't about sadness. It was about drift, and drift is dangerous. Let me ask you something. If you woke up tomorrow and had no tasks, no expectations, no one asking for anything, how long before you stop trying? That's what happens to many seniors. We take away their chores. We remove their responsibilities. We spoil them with ease. And slowly, the brain stops setting goals. The body stops preparing. The days blur. Irene used to write letters. Not often, but she liked it. So I asked her, "Would you write one letter a week? To anyone you choose?" She said yes. Every Tuesday morning, she picked a name, chose a card, wrote something by hand, and walked to the mailbox. That was it. But it changed everything. A week later, she said, "I feel like the day has a shape again." Do you hear how simple that is? She didn't need a mission. She needed a moment. Purpose doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Something the person owns, chooses, continues. And the truth is, without it, decline sets in fast. The science supports it. Loss of purpose is linked to weaker immunity, faster cognitive decline, increased risk of depression, higher mortality within 1 to 2 years. But beyond the research, I've seen it with my own eyes. A man who stopped doing his crossword said he didn't feel like it anymore. A woman who used to plan tea time every Thursday now just sits. It always starts the same way. "I'll do it later." Doesn't matter. No one's waiting. But someone always is. Even if it's just themselves. That sense of matching is what holds a person alive. So if you're over 80 or caring for someone who is, ask this question gently. What do you still want to be in charge of? Don't push. Don't assign. Invite. Even something small. Choosing the flowers for the table. Feeding the birds. Being the weather reporter for the family group chat. Telling one story at dinner. Being the one who waters the plants. Every role counts. Every rhythm matters. Because it builds memory. It gives today a reason. And when today matters, tomorrow does too. I once knew a man named Joel. He was 91. He lived in a senior facility. didn't talk much. Until one day, the staff asked him to read announcements at lunch. He said yes. Once a day for 60 seconds, he stood at a small podium and spoke. That was all. But by the third week, he added jokes. By the fifth, he started greeting new residents by name. He came alive because someone gave him a microphone, a moment, a reason. If you made it this far, I hope this truth stays with you. Energy follows meaning, not the other way around. We don't move because we feel strong. We move because we feel needed. And then strength follows. So if someone in your life is fading, don't ask, how do I cheer them up? Ask, what can they still lead? Give them back a task, a moment, a thread of belonging. Because when a person stops having purpose, the body starts shutting down, even if the heart is still beating. But give them purpose again, and you'll be amazed what comes back. If this kind of quiet reflection feels helpful to you, you're welcome to come back anytime. I'll be here. This space doesn't go anywhere, and neither should you. There's still more to live, even the smallest moments. Even after 80, even now,